Second chapter, the first war begins.
After Odin himself had closed the eyes of his brother Uranus and was sitting there mourning for about 15 minutes or so, before the moment where he heard someone screaming from behind him, "Odin!" This voice was unfamiliar to him, since he did not officially know the person which yelled at him. Odin himself then turned around and saw 7 gods, 2 of them holding daggers, or knives preferably, doesn't really matter what they were, but they held them, and then next to these 7 gods there were 4 others. Frigga, Ragnar, Odin's son, Björn, Odin's son, and 4, Odin's son. 4 was just an infant, but Björn and Ragnar was both old. Odin would then look at them, knowing fully well what was going on, because the son was kneeling, and the guys held the knives like this, above the throat. Odin himself simply tried to stutter out a phrase saying, "You don't want to do this. Taking a life will not end well for you. And if you do, you will not be able to leave this hall." Odin himself would then get up on his 2 legs, and he would look at them, and this person, which is simply known now as the God of Anarchy — we didn't really give him a name back in that day, but we simply call him Anarchy. Anarchy himself started to laugh like a maniacal child. He yeah, he wasn't exactly a very glamorous person, but basically what ended up happening is that he said, "No, I don't care. I do what I want to do." That's how this world works, doesn't it? And then simply Anarchy just slit the Anarchy's 2 lackeys, as you may call them, slit the throats of Ragnar and Björn's throats, and their blood started to lit to the ground. This is the moment where Odin's eyes lit up green, both of them, and you could see him going into a running stance before he absolutely disappears. He didn't teleport, and he didn't fly. He is just so fast that none of them could see where he was going. They would, some of the forces of Anarchy would freak out. Anarchy himself would simply would be the first one to run away. Before everything happened, basically what ended up happening is that Anarchy himself fled after hearing Odin basically said, "Didn't you understand what I meant when I said you will not leave here if you do it?" Well, to make you understand what I was thinking, it meant And before Odin said another word, he appeared behind the two others, took their knives, and stabbed them. Both of the gods went down, and Odin himself held the knives in a reversed grip as to basically hold himself in a better angle. There were four gods against him now. He would have died definitively if he hadn't... Well, I forgot to say what the phrase was that Odin said afterwards. Odin said, "You're already dead," as he stabs them. And then Anarchy himself started running at the moment of this happening, and then the other gods were standing there, not having any weapons, I grant you, and they attacked Odin. They would have killed him as well if it hadn't been because of Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades showing up all together and fighting them off. Now, all of this went down for a bit of a while. I'd say roughly 15 minutes. It's not that big of a detail. All of the pretty much 3 of the gods died, but 1 managed to escape, other than Anarchy himself. So there's practically 5 dead gods now. And this is the phenomenon we call the First War. War for power, or the War for Destinies, as some would call it. Or the War of Faith. No matter, we all came under the same conclusion that it was supposed to be called the First War, because there was none before it. This was the only war that had ever happened in our history. Anarchy himself had been massing a massive force down in the south of Eden. And may I just add that there is a massive force, about 2,000 forces, 2,500, and Odin himself had 0 forces at the moment. But he's basically, he looked at his sons, dead sons, and he realized to himself that he don't have the time to mourn right now. So what he did is that he got his wife onto her 2 legs, and then he led her out of the room, and then after that he said that 4 will gain the power of the weather. Well, practically, and he should be known as the god of thunder. Basically, what that means is that he could control. He can control water. He can make it float and stuff like that. But he can't actually conjure water. But he can conjure lightning like Zeus. He can also conjure hail. However, I doubt if hail is that useful. Then again, you can always make a huge spike of ice and throw it at someone. I guess that's always useful. Yeah, so basically the snow, everything that you could possibly imagine with the weather, he had control of. Zeus sort of had the same type of power, but he was more lightning based, if you get my meaning. And he couldn't control water like Thor could. But he could practically control the elements that come with the weather. And conjure lightning, as I said. He actually got an anvil at a time, and then he started hitting that, and that basically created a lot of weather on Earth. A long story, but let me just get on. I'm sorry. The writing itself is getting a bit weirder now. What happened afterwards is that Odin himself said that I want all of you guys to start building a wall around the first hall. We need weapons, armor, barracks, we need an armory, we need a lot of things that I will be including more in the book, by the way. Just saying. And Odin himself helps create these things, but he extends the first hall so that there is a war room, a council room, which is making like a round table in a sense of speaking, and he has like the biggest chair there, but it doesn't really matter anything. And after all of this, a lot of gods show up because Poseidon is a teleporting badass that is able to like boom, 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 like he teleports himself using water in the ground, and then he just, it makes him move a lot more faster and can spread the word a lot more quicker. Hades himself has the same type of shadow that a Dementor would, not Dementor, has the same thing that something you would see out of a Harry Potter movie when they go flying. Yeah, he used dark energy. And at this time, Odin himself would help create everything, and then Zeus brought in Hephaestus to create the armors, and what Hephaestus does is that he takes the life, he takes the life force off of life to create a blade called the nature blade, right? And then Uranus's life force, what is left of it anyway, or energy, it's hard to explain, but it took his and put it into another sword and called it the lightest light. Now, the 5 gods that had died during the first battle with Odin all got killed, and their souls got trapped into the soul. Now, lightest light and I forgot to tell you what the name is. Cain's Bane. That's what it's called. It's a sword that harnesses dark energy and releases it. Basically, the more soul energy you bring into it, the more you can release. It's sort of thing that you absorb the energy. The same with the lightest light, only that it can, like, both of these swords has equal things, but they are both different. They're like equal opposite of each other. The lightest light can create, it's like a what you call a flashlight, but only like a lot more brighter, and it could light up an entire continent at its brightest lights, it's as to say. And the darkest and Cain's Bane, the sword, had the ability to turn an entire continent completely dark. Now, this is an Earth continent, by the way. I'm not saying an Eden continent, because those continents are way more bigger, and it was about 2,000 continents on Eden that I'm not going to get into. But basically what ended up happening is that and the nature blade itself was made, and the nature blade itself didn't have the same properties as the lightest life or Cain's Bane. But what they did have, which you might find really interesting, it had the ability to control life's creation, or nature, if you like. It couldn't control souls, I may add, but it could control the earth, magma, whatever you could possibly think of. It's like a thing, is that the wielder itself can control it. Now, all of these things all forged together, I may add, this is impossible. It's a prophecy. An ancient prophecy said, or not an ancient, at this time it was an I guess it's an it doesn't matter. The prophecy itself says that all of these swords together would make the true master of the universe, and whoever carries that sword would be known as the Tritain wielder. Now, Tritain means the immortal tree. and is meant to encapsulate the three siblings or the three elder gods. Completely in how you want to look at it. It doesn't really matter. But these swords all combine together, like, as to say where the swords are now, that would be crazy. Anyways, let me get on to it. The Nature Blade was given to Odin, which also got a huge battle axe, by the way, which was completely balanced. This thing, he could literally, like, it didn't weigh anything. He could just walk around and just, he could dual wield, because the Nature Blade was a great sword. It was meant to be two-hand wielded, but Odin, yeah, both of the things was relatively simple to carry. I mean, eventually he got a much more greater axe, but yeah. And then, if he isn't matter enough, he decided to get a shield and straps it onto his back. And usually his axe is under that shield. And he usually just had the Nature Blade sheathed. And Cain's Bane was given to Hades. And the Lightest Light was given to Ra, the sun god. Now, after all of this shenanigans, as if you may. Oh, I forgot to mention. Zeus himself got created something called a lightning bolt. Well, it was a rare metal of sorts, in a sense of speaking, that you could form into anything. But Zeus himself had the ability of something you would call an invisible string. Let me show you. This here is a bow. Now, an invisible string, you can see the string on this. Zeus himself had the ability to create a string by doing this with his fingers. On any surface, it doesn't matter. He could create a string that would be, he could choose to make it invincible or not. And the invisible string itself, he could use on the lightning bolt to create himself, well, a bow. And then he creates, and then when he want to create a lightning bolt arrow, what he does is just he simply does this and this. That would form the entire arrow itself. He really likes to be more theatric and show off his power. That's Zeus for you. Trust me, that is what he was mostly known for, was literally showing off his powers. Anyways, let me go on. After all of this, Odin would go into the war room, and he would be there with his advisors. More importantly, those advisors were, I don't really think I need to mention this, but Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Ra, and several others that I can't be bothered to mention. More details in the book, as I said. Now, as for that, for 12 days, nothing happened. For 12 days, Odin himself got forces every day, about 500 per day. Well, not 500, but like the first 2 days it was about 500. The next day was like 200. And after that it just became shorter and shorter. But at the end they were exactly 2,000. 500 shy of Anarchy's forces. Now, Anarchy himself didn't do anything until the 12th day. Now, when the 12th day came around, you could hear a horn, and it was pitch black. Now, let me just tell you something. Sometimes your moon on Earth lights up the ground. We don't have a moon. We didn't have a moon. So it didn't light up. The only thing that lighted up the sky was stars. Artificially created stars. that didn't light up the ground, but it was beautiful to look up. So it was a completely dark field ahead of us. 100%. And Odin himself ended up going up on the wall with Zeus and Ra, and he basically says, Zeus, let there be light. Way to be funny. What Zeus does is that he creates lightning bolts in his fingers, and then he starts to control the weather until the entire sky lights up blue, as to see if they have any flying creatures. If not, those flying creatures, if they were up in the sky, they would be knocked out or whatever. And then Ra took his sword, drew it, and then he activated the ability which made it shine in front of them. All of the army of Anarchy could be heard, and his laughter came right afterwards. And right after that, he started burning the fields. Now, Odin himself had put up a very specific way of forces. He had one sword group, one phalanx group, not phalanx, but it's the best way I can describe it. Spearmen, innocently speaking. Only this wasn't exactly spears, but then again, I can't explain it, okay? It's magical stuff, okay? Then we had archers and mages. Or that is the most easiest way of explaining the entire army formation. Odin himself had the mages put up wards around the fort, meaning that when they started firing their own spells, they wouldn't be able to get through. And this was just one-sided, meaning that Anarchy's forces could only walk towards the fort, meaning that it would actually have to be inside of the distance of the fort to be actually taking damage to it. And the archers were on the wall with the swordmen, I may add, because in case they had any sort of siege machines, since speaking. And the spearmen were all surrounded around the gate. And they were all pointing their spears at the gate, so if they managed to get through the gate, they would not manage it. Basically, what Anarchy did, he fired his magical attacks and arrows. They didn't get through the actual wall. Now, may I just pay this to notice? Anarchy hadn't tried or figured out how to create magical wards yet. But obviously he knew that they were there. But he didn't know that you could create wards. Or he didn't think of that. So Anarchy's forces are a bit underdeveloped. So when we start firing, a lot of the forces of Anarchy goes down. And then he puts up a huge energy wall, which he can't see through, I may add. And Odin does the unthinkable thing. I have never heard about someone doing such a mad thing as this. But Odin literally decided to get up and say, "Swordman, follow me." Took his axe. Took his sword. And he charged out of the gate. The first man out of that wall with Hades and Ra right behind him, and the rest of the 500 swordsmen which was with him. Let me just add that Zeus was given orders to keep on firing at the wall until it broke. And Zeus is absolutely amazing. He made the wall break at the moment Odin was literally there. Meaning that Anarchy's forces didn't see Zeus. Zeus and Odin's forces. Odin himself was the first man into that clash, and I can tell you straight away, we were fewer. That charge was a mad tactic by Odin. Honestly, if we just played the siege defense, we might have lost. But Odin himself pulled up with such a... because their morale was so low at the time, and they broke. Although their forces just didn't imagine Odin attacking like that. And this was the first battle ever recorded, ever done. No one has ever attempted a large-scale conquest before. No one has ever attempted a war. No one has even attempted a battle or a siege of a place. Meaning that this was the first time ever attempted for it. And Odin knew this. So Odin charged. About 800 of Anarchy's forces fled. About 1,500 of Anarchy's forces managed to get away, but 1,000 of Anarchy's forces died by 500 gods. It's not because of the gods were more powerful than Anarchy's forces, that's not the case. It was because of the actual... it was because of everything else. This was absolutely marvelous. Odin broke through and he lost just 200 men. 200 men! Odin himself is a bit of a nut sometimes when it comes to military strategy. He plays with it. But after the battle itself, he got inside of the wall and he saw his forces all scared. And because 200 of their friends had just fallen. That happened. And the battle was over. Odin himself decided to go back into the war room. Zeus and Ra was standing there. Both were standing there. And what Odin did is that he said, I've had enough of all of this. I don't want to kill any more brothers and sisters. I've gone through so much now. It's been... I don't want to see any more dead. I don't want to keep on killing my friends, my family. And then Zeus would clench his fist and say, you cry for our enemies. And Odin himself, I have to explain to you briefly how the conversation goes. Odin himself basically says, do you want me to feel happy for killing our own kin? Mother created them. Why shouldn't I feel anything? Why? Tell me! That's what he says. And then he just simply goes out into the Great Hall. And then he sits there. And then he says, a life where taking other lives are forbidden. That'd be a life I could live with. Isn't that what you usually said, brother? That's it for today. Guys, thank you guys so much for being patient. I'm sorry about not uploading this yesterday. But I was busy yesterday and now I'm still uploading it today. Thank you guys though for your support and the fact that you still watch my videos. And not only that, but the fact is that I'm going to try to upload. I haven't finished a chapter of the next. I'm still working on it. I'm like halfway into it, and I'm working on it. Okay, it's a work in progress, but I hope you guys enjoyed. That's all I'm really willing to say. Because this has been an adventure for me, and I don't even know if this book will be anyhow recognized by anyone. So I have to thank you guys so much for watching. Well, you do what you want to do now. Whether you want to watch, continue watching any more of my videos, it's all up to you. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Becken, and I'm